to participate. I first want to say to you that I acknowledge that we have been put on notice regarding all of the incidents that have occurred in the Ney area. We are obviously where we understand how difficult it is. We're having challenges throughout East Oakland with our spike in violence, and we're doing everything we can to address it. We have requested resources from other sides, the other side of the city. We've also requested resources from other assignments throughout the department in order to help support our enforcement operations around the Ney area. I've been out there personally and walked in the area just to see what was going on and really what was driving the violence. I've also called a meeting personally to meet with the Housing Authority and their command staff to have a discussion about a partnership between us to help address the issues on Ney Street. And they've been very helpful and very willing to work together to try to come up with solutions to the issues that are happening on Ney Street. I've also met with my supervisory staff, both in Captain Lewis, as well as our CRO for the area, Officer Del Morale. Hopefully he's gotten into the meeting. A couple of things that I've requested be done, and I hope you have seen some of these actions take place. I directed my staff to place an officer in the area 16 hours a day. So you should see, and I drive home through MacArthur every day in that area. There's a police car or some type of presence in the area of MacArthur in Ney Street. And they've been there for over the past week or so, a little more than a week and a half. We've had that car when available. Now we are paying overtime for an officer to be deployed in that area. Really, the goal is to increase visibility in the area, to hopefully be a deterrent for those that might want to come over there and commit violent acts while we continue to investigate those that have been driving the violence. We have made key arrests and of a couple of individuals that we believe were involved in the violence and may have even been the nexus to some of the violence that we've seen as of late. And so we hope that is beginning to have an effect. But obviously, we continue to hear gunfire in the area as we track our ShotSpotter data. So we're continuing to work in the area. We've also reached out to other city departments, including Department of Violence Prevention, who you'll hear from tonight. We've also been working with our Department of Transportation as well to try to address issues on the MacArthur corridor and helping us deal with traffic-related issues. I've sent out our traffic officers on multiple occasions in the area, and you've probably seen them on motorcycles in the area to deal with the traffic safety concerns that I've had on the MacArthur corridor and around the Ney Street area. We believe that this is going to really take a partnership between the department and the community to come up with, hopefully through our NCPC, with projects for Officer Del Morale to work on that could hopefully produce some positive outcomes. We will continue to have a vehicle in that area conducting high visibility patrols, as well as quick response to any violence related incidents. His responsibility is not to sit in one place, to be fluid and drive around this 2-block radius. He or she is only patrolling that 2-block radius. And some occasions they will have their lights on as well. The real intent is again to be visible and hopefully be a deterrent. I'm cognizant of the trauma that this area has experienced, from homicides to shootings to even recovering shell casings myself as I walk the area. So I know how serious these issues are. Please understand that we are really at the OPD right now. We've seen an incredible increase in violence across all of East Oakland, and we're trying to address all of those issues. It has been a challenge for us. We are at our bandwidth. And so really the new strategies that we'll be implementing moving forward really will be, one in which we rely on our other partners. And I think, when you hear from Department of Violence Prevention, they'll be a key partner in helping us sort of intervene in whatever is leading or driving this violence. And so I will say, even up, last night, even in the 8900 block of Mac, which is, about 10 blocks away, there was another homicide last night. of a young man was shot and killed. And so while I have an officer posted in this area, I have violence that is occurring 10 blocks away. And so this is just something that our ceasefire team is really working on to try to intervene in this violence. We're trying to make key arrests, which we have. We've recovered more weapons this year, firearms, than we have in the last several years. We're right now currently 37% higher in our recovery rate. We've recovered over 1,000 firearms in the city this week. Last week we recovered 30 firearms just last week in all of our operations, several of which were high-powered rifles with extended magazines in some cases as well. So we're seeing an unprecedented amount of firepower, firearms in our community. We're working with the ATF to try to address those issues. And so that is some of the things that we're currently doing. Officer Demoral, is he in yet, council member?
He is, yes.
Okay, and if Officer Demoral can speak to the work that he's been doing as of late in the area, and then we'll pass it on, council member.
Sure, Officer Del Moral.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I should say good evening.
Yep.
So as of late, I've been doing security checks every day out there on NAY. I've also made contact with several of the citizens who have provided me with video footage of the incidents that have occurred on NAY, and I forward those to our investigator who's investigating these shootings, which would be Nicole Rhodes. So I was also out there on two surveillances, an overt and a covert surveillance, where we were trying to identify persons involved in the shootings and try to have a better understanding of why these individuals are engaging each other in such violence and such ferocity. The other thing is that I'm trying to figure out what things that I could do to help improve the neighborhood, such as the broken windows theory, trying to address certain blighted properties and certain other issues that may be contributing to the overall violence in the area. What I want to do is try to reach out and see if OHA would be willing to put out cameras on their properties to help capture some of the violence that's occurring out there, that can assist us later on in our investigation in identifying the individuals out there. The problem that I have realized for NAY is that it is a long street, and unfortunately within that long street, there are certain pockets of individuals that do belong to a NAY Street crew out there. They're the ones that are being shot at. So we're trying to understand why this violence is happening, and then maybe we can prevent it from happening in the future. I'd like to thank the citizens for calling me personally on my phone and alerting me to the shootings. And we have gone out there, responded, and they have responded by providing me with quick video of what had occurred, and getting that video in the hands of our investigators and officers on the scene. So I'd like to thank them for that. I mean, they have been tremendous, and I applaud them for being there for me and OPD.
Great. Thank you, Officer Del Moral. I'm sure that there are questions, but we're going to move on to the others who can present. So, Oakland Housing Authority, thank you guys for being on the line. Ms. Wells and the rest of the team, if you guys can sort of take the mic and then share an update, as well as what is planned, if there are things that are planned.
Of course. Thank you, council member, and thank you, Eastmont Hills Community Association, for inviting us here this evening. I am joined by several members of our team, including our Chief of Police and Chief Operating Officer here this evening. And I'm fairly new to the role of Executive Director, just reaching on 1 year. And I have to tell you that the trauma that's occurred on the Ney Avenue has certainly been lifted up to us by our families that we serve in several of the apartment buildings there on Ney Avenue. So in response to our resident concerns, who, like you, share the same type of hurts, the fears, and the frustration, we've developed a plan that we launched about 2 weeks ago to address what's happening at Nay Avenue and impacting our families in kind of a comprehensive model. I've heard the idea of broken window theory. I've seen it in some of the emails. We have a very similar model that is also a four-pronged approach. The first is on property management. We absolutely know that for our apartment buildings that there was some refreshment that was needed. And so hopefully you've seen that in the last couple of weeks, our crews are out there doing some refreshment, responding to a Dept review of the property, crime prevention through environmental design, which was facilitated by one of our expert police officers with the Oakland Housing Authority Police Department. And we're doing a lot of retooling to the landscaping, the lighting, metrics to the gating that we're looking at to try to improve those aspects of the property management. We also, from the Housing Authority, again, our residents are also worried about the crime and fearful about what's happening and impacting they and their children, many of whom attend Parker Elementary School. And so our resident services team, as well as our property management team, are doing individual meetings and doing collective meetings with the residents that we serve there, so that the residents are equally as involved in making sure that we've got eyes on our property and certainly eyes on the whole Nay Avenue corridor. And so they're very eager to be part of this community approach to make sure that safety is paramount, and safety including the fact that there's curb appeal and beautification and opportunities to just make the whole corridor more safe and more vibrant for all the families that live there, along with you and the other neighbors at the property. The Housing Authority has two different types of subsidized housing in the city of Oakland. One are properties that we manage, like the one that has come up in several of your emails there at 7950 Nay. We actually manage it for a nonprofit affiliate known as OPI, Oakland Affordable Housing Preservation Initiatives. But we also are partners with landlords who provide affordable housing for persons with housing choice vouchers, Section 8 vouchers. And so we have done started a community outreach to our partner landlords out there just to get their input and what their concerns are and what their ideas are to add to the community safety aspect for what's happening at Nay. And then doing the same type of outreach with the families who are being subsidized with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And the outreach is multifaceted. There's first just seeing if the families are okay. COVID has added such an amount of trauma, as we all know, right, for all of us. And so we're seeing an uptick with people having depression. There's some domestic violence, which was noted that happened at the property. According to the reports there, we find it's a citywide issue for all of Oakland, and we partner with a lot of the same partnerships that the city does, nonprofit community-based organizations that are there to provide counseling and training and assistance for our families. We also have a youth and young adult engagement program that focuses on getting folks more involved in distance learning, involved in some workforce development activities, and involved in actually being part of the solution for alternative dispute resolution and mediation. So it's kind of a very comprehensive approach to make sure that the families that we serve are getting services they need for those that live in apartment buildings that we manage, as well as those on our Housing Choice Voucher Program. And then lastly, it's what we're doing right here today. The Housing Authority has been an active member of the NCPC in the community. We were introduced to your association with the email that I received last week. And so we're absolutely excited to be part of this community building process. We are here for the long haul, and we're here to be as creative and engaging to make Nay Avenue a vibrant community. For OHA, we've been doing it for decades. I myself and other shoes with the Housing Authority have been a part of everything from our partnership with Nay School, Parker School there, where we have some of our parent volunteers assist the teachers when we're having in-classroom sessions. We've done done the murals there at the Parker Elementary School and some of the other special activities at the parks in the entire Nay Avenue corridor. And so we're just refreshing that and making sure that we're engaging with much more deliberate energy on our participation there. And then lastly, you see, again, we're joined by our Chief of Police and our lieutenant on this particular call, who are taking our community policing approach, which for OHAPD means engagement with our families, engagements with the young people that we see frequenting the properties. And we are looking at not just doing in response to Septet's kind of some more creative lighting and looking at how we're protecting the property with gates, but we are looking to purchase a couple of cameras there at the properties that will face outward so that we can see the coming and goings onto our property. And so that's kind of a council member and association. And I'm remiss, I also say our captain with our police department, forgive me, Captain. That's kind of what we've been putting together. It's a model for the Housing Authority that we have refreshed, and we're using the challenges that Nay Avenue is under to direct this model at the properties there to assist the families we serve. And then obviously it'll assist the entire community, which is part of our goal, being a positive part of the community. And we're actually kind of really excited at the opportunity to now be part of the association and have this an ongoing relationship. And Chief, I don't know, Chief Duplessis, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, sir?
No, why don't we wait until we get to the question and answer session, then I can talk more if they have specifics about the things that you said.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well then, Councilmember, sir, I think I kept within your 7 minutes. You're on mute.
I was on mute, yes. I think you did good. One of the things either you or the chief could speak to, I know when we met before, you had mentioned the increased presence as well of officers. And so I wanted to give you a chance to acknowledge that before we move on to the next speaker.
Yeah,
Sure, I'm gonna let you speak.
yeah, we have asked our officers to consistently make drive-bys. I mean, one thing I want to point out is we don't have a significant presence on that block. Between the 75 and 7900 block, we only have 5 properties located on 4 sites. I know I've seen emails where the thought process that a lot of these other properties were ours or not. You know, 2 of them are in the 79, one in the 7600 block, the other 2 in the 7500 block that are connected together. So we have increased our patrols. We've been asking the officers to get by there a little bit more, walk the sites. We want them to check the lighting. And again, I don't know if a lot of you saw that, but immediately, you know, upon hearing a lot of the issues, we did contend with a crime prevention through environmental design study on that property. And our property management was very quick to get lighting and set at the property. So we've been wanting to make sure we also got by there at nighttime to make sure that the lighting wasn't defeated. You know, part of the process is not just to do it and walk away. We want to make sure that the things that we do continue to work to try to keep safety at as high as and to promote the crime prevention techniques that are outlined in the best practices of law enforcement. So we have continued and we will continue to make sure that that we get officers by. Like OPD, though, you know, I do want to say that, you know, we have been hit very hard with violent crimes throughout the city. This is just not Nay Avenue, it's all over. And I'm not making excuses. I'm as horrified as anyone else. You know, it's, you know, not just for the private homeowners, but of course, our tenants that live on our property are also our friends. We have significant great relationships with them, and I want to make sure that they're safe and they have a great life and prosperity on the property. So I'm very concerned for them as well as the global community. So we'll stay on top of it. I apologize, Councilman, if I went too long.
No worries. Appreciate that. So thank you for that. Next that we have lined up is Oakland's Department of Violence Prevention, because I know that they have a number of things that they have been working on and looking forward to implementing. So I see Chief Cespedes, you just went off mute, so please.
Thank you, Council Member, and thank you to OPD and the Housing Authority and the residents of Nay Street. I won't go through the whole picture of what the Department of Violence Prevention does, but I will break it down into just two categories, which is while Dept does environmental design and the police is able to do criminal investigations, most of our work centers on the relationships that are both producing the violence and have the capability of stopping the violence. So it's less visible, less, I would describe what we do into two categories. One is the issue of working with law enforcement in putting out the fires when there are shootings, and trying to provide services to the victims of shootings and services geared towards getting those people that are committing the harm to change their behavior. And then there are longer term services that I think are dedicated to fireproofing, using that analogy. So right now, what we're caught up with, assist the rest of the city, is this issue of putting out the fires that are taking place with the levels of violence that are taking place throughout the city. Specific to NA, and one of our managers, Peter Kim, will talk about this, a proposed strategy that we presented to Councilmember Taylor, which is specific to NA. There are two things that are recent that have been generated by some of it by the violence in NA and some of it by the violence citywide. In relation to NA, and Peter Kim will explain this a little bit more, is we've identified several relationships that we feel fairly certain that we could tap into to help us in putting, in mitigating some of the violence. Folks that have influence with some of the people that are involved in causing harm, and Peter will explain that a little bit more. And the second strategy is that we, our staff, including me, has begun responding to crime scenes in real time in order to intervene at the level of trauma with families immediately after the incident takes place, but equally as important, to get our violence interrupters to start the violence interruption and negotiation process earlier. Neither one of these strategies have necessarily yet produced the results that the NA residents are looking for. The Department of Violence Prevention has assigned two top experts in the field of mediation, both with long histories of success in Oakland, and they have been in charge of developing that strategy, presenting that strategy to Councilmember Taylor, and in meeting with the families that are involved that we think can help us in reducing the violence. And some of those meetings have taken place with our violence interruption experts, and I have been present at one meeting specifically with the mothers that we think could be influential in turning this around. Of course, we do coordinate with law enforcement, and our coordination with the housing authority is less evident. It's just we are a fairly recent department, and our collaboration with law enforcement with OPD goes back a little bit longer. So rather than taking all of the time, I'm just going to have Peter explain just briefly what that approach, the approach of responding to crime scenes, basically what it looks like is DVP accompanies OPD, and is also accompanied by violence interrupters. We call it the triangle response. It's a model that I implemented throughout the city of LA while I was there as a deputy mayor, very effective. It was evaluated. And we were planning to implement further down the road. We've accelerated getting this out of the gate as a result of the urgency that we're going through in Oakland. So we are excited, is not the word, we're eager to get it in place. And this is something that we're not seeking city funds to do. We're basically moving resources around to get it done because we think this is the time to bring it out. So I'll let Peter tell you very briefly what the other activity related to NA is, and then we'll take questions later. Peter, can you just share briefly what that intervention looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening. My name is Peter Kim. I'm the manager for the Department of Violence Prevention. Thank you, Councilmember Taylor, for getting us together. I just want to thank all the residents for sharing space with us tonight. So as Chief Cespedes had kind of outlined to you all, we really do take a public health approach towards trying to intervene in and reduce violence. We look specifically at how to provide folks with support, primarily through presenting alternatives, as well as resources to really try to give people opportunities to make different decisions and to change the dynamics in their lives. So when it comes to the folks on NAY, what we've done is we've engaged some of the folks in the field that we fund and that we help coordinate around interrupting violence. So we call these folks our violence interrupters. And we've actually enlisted the support of our 2 interrupters that have the deepest ties and relationships with people in East Oakland, the part that includes NAY. And then our lead violence interruption coordinator, his name is Kevin Grant. He's actually already begun tapping into relationships that exist with mothers in particular, because one of the things that the DVP is really trying to do is in focusing on relationships, it's not just with the individuals at the center of the violence, right? It's absolutely those folks who are the victims. It's absolutely those folks who are creating the harm. But how do we also wrap our arms around the families? How do we try to create change by using families as a vehicle for transformation? So what we've done is we've engaged the mothers, a couple of them that are in the area, one that's I think even lives along NAY, and they've been selected because of their own credibility, because of their own kind of longstanding presence in the area, but specifically also because of their sons and who their sons are and how they're involved in activity. And so what we're going to do is, by involving these 2 mothers as well as other mothers in other areas, we selected 4 key areas in East Oakland that are just particularly hot right now. And NAY is one of those areas. We're going to bring these 4 mothers together to become kind of a core group to help organize some very targeted, localized gatherings that include first the mothers to help kind of then strategize on how to bring one side of, say, 2 groups that are in conflict. So one group would be the Nay Avenue folks that are hanging out both in and around the corners by the school and in the areas that are getting targeted for violence. Bring those young men together, but facilitated by the mothers to really impress upon them that just as much as anyone else in the community, they have a role in playing to make the community safer, to really kind of impress upon them that just like everyone on this call, they don't want to have to live in fear. They don't want to have to feel like they can't go to the streets and just kind of hang out and be safe, but then also to start having conversations about owning what role are they playing in creating or inviting or attracting these type of dynamics that make the neighborhoods dangerous. We want to have that same conversation with the other groups that we have identified that are actually targeting the folks on NAY. And then we have that conversation with them. And then the third meeting in this series would be then to bring a small group of kind of leadership from each side into a room to start having conversations like, what kind of agreements can we come across to actually help ensure that the activity will be reduced? But it has to be in such a way that not only do both groups feel ownership over that process, that they have equal voice, that their needs and their concerns are being heard, but that they're also being held accountable to one another and to their parents and to their families that are just as impacted as they are by the violence. Then another step is once we are able to kind of get this critical mass with these folks and get them on board, meanwhile, having simultaneously with groups like yourselves as residents, having conversations and being very clear what you guys already have been into what are your needs, what are your concerns, and then ultimately, if it would work out, and I think this is something that Councilmember Taylor's office will be working with you all, is maybe to get that core group of mothers with some of the young men from NAY into a space with all of you. We're envisioning maybe like an outdoor space, almost like, just think of it almost like a block party, where we with the support of the city, kind of close off some streets, have it socially distant and safe for all of us to gather, and then have a conversation, an honest dialogue between all the residents of the community, and again, have some shared community agreements around what is needed to make our neighborhood safe, what is needed on both sides, what are the commonalities across the board, and then also where are some of the tensions and differences, and then to come up with some community accountability agreements on how folks can hold each other accountable in creating an environment that keeps everybody safe. So that's kind of our vision. It's going to take, several months to get to that final step, or maybe not several months, but at least a month and a half to 2 months to get to that final step. And we'll be working closely with Councilmember Taylor to get there. But I'll stop right there and we can answer questions.
Thank you for that, Peter. Yeah, for introducing the concept. I think so. I'll add more later, but I think it's great to lay that out there that we are all working towards that shared vision of what the ideal community and neighborhood environment is like, and how we collectively work towards creating that. So next was for me to provide some additional updates that maybe weren't touched on. And so I did want to touch on a few things that are also contributing to this greater safety community that we are trying to strengthen, uplift, build. And so I guess a couple of points. One, we do have, I believe, Megan Weir is on the line, and from our Department of Transportation. And I know that, and everyone here knows that we specifically identified Ney Avenue as one of the slow streets programs pilots, so that we can try and implement some infrastructure elements to help slow things down, calm things down, create space for community to sort of be out on Ney Avenue. And while there are definitely lessons learned from the first implementation of slow streets, there is a phase 2 that is being planned for the slow streets effort. And so I'd love to give Megan a chance to speak to that, as well as any other updates you might be able to provide. I know that we've got DOT has also been very focused on conducting a traffic safety study to understand how is traffic flowing, what improvements, more hard improvements can be made on Ney Avenue and MacArthur Boulevard, the whole sort of Eastmont corridor as well. So Megan, if you don't mind providing a quick update on some of those activities where DOT has focused on the Ney Avenue and Eastmont corridor.
Certainly, and thank you so much, Councilmember, for the opportunity to be here, and just good evening to my city colleagues and residents. As you mentioned, we implemented the slow streets in response to both community safety concerns and the need for more physically distant space for people to walk and bike during COVID. And one of the key findings from our interim findings report is that in order to maintain the program through the pandemic, we really need more durable materials. And we've heard loud and clear from residents on Ney with respect to the maintenance needs of the barricades and signs that we have in place. And so in the next couple of weeks, we're transitioning to more durable materials. We've prioritized Ney for our first rollout of those materials, and we'll be installing more durable barricades, signage, as well as what we refer to as delineators, but it's actually replacing the cones that were out in the field. So essentially posts that are adhered to the ground so that they're more durable. But we also know and have heard for years with respect to concerns regarding traffic safety and speeding on the Ney corridor. So we're simultaneously engaged with a study. A few weekends ago, we were out and did a walkthrough of the corridor with residents and heard about, really were able to speak in detail with city staff and consultants that are advancing the study about what concerns are and opportunities and treatments that can address those issues. So our team is now taking a deeper dive on and looking at really site-specific locations where things like traffic circles, traffic diverters, and other improvements can address some of the speeding and cut-through traffic, and we'll be bringing them back back to the residents in a late fall, early winter for a deeper dive and more feedback. I'm excited to be here as a part of this evening's discussion because I'm really see this work also having potential to be a supportive role, in a lot of the discussions we're having tonight around community violence. And so have directed our team to look for opportunities for like more art and placemaking, kind of in the installation, the more permanent improvements as that work moves forward. And also I know Councilmember Taylor, we've been corresponding with respect to in the short term, planter boxes and opportunities for those types of improvements as we're advancing those more permanent improvements. So I know there's a lot to talk about this evening. I'll stop there, but look forward to any questions or more discussion.
Thank you for providing that update and for your partnership. I know DOT has been focused on improving the infrastructure across the city, but having sort of a dedicated focus on NA, and that prioritized in your sort of activities is helpful as well in terms of prioritizing District 6. Just to the point that you mentioned on the planter boxes, we have been in communication with the same artists who developed the planter boxes that were rolled out as a pilot at Ossian and Plymouth in District 7. And so it looks like there is a path towards getting those sort of created, the artwork done to make it aesthetically pleasing. So look forward to sort of coordinating that piece. And we've even had conversations with the artist about that being part of and tied into the community event that the Department of Violence Prevention was describing, where it could circle around planting, in the planters and painting those planters in a way that sort of characterizes the Ney area and Ney Avenue area. So those conversations are underway, and that's something that I am sort of continuing to move forward as well. To that point, I'm going to turn it over to Rowena in case there's a couple things to highlight that from our office that we haven't, and then kind of move over to more of a community conversation, Q&A, other discussion based on what we've heard. Rowena, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, thank you. Thanks. I definitely had the note for the Slow Streets program. And in addition to that, another thing that we'll be partnering with, I am looking forward to our continued partnership with Officer Del Moral, as well as in the month of November, the group will be getting a new NSC. And so I look forward to that continued partnership and really launching some of the community cleanups that our office has been engaged in throughout the district. So that's something that's coming very soon. I actually have a meeting with a couple of the folks that are on the board for the Eastmont Neighborhood Association. So that is coming soon. And then I did see that Jose is on the call. And so he sent us an email requesting the information of the for a vacant lot that's right there on the corner of Parker and Ney. And so although the email wasn't addressed to me, I did do some research and I was able to get in contact with that owner. And basically the plan is with the hope of that space becoming a community garden. So that's an exciting piece that I look forward to sharing with everyone, actually on tomorrow's NCPC call and some of the steps there. But that's all that I have for right now.
Great, thanks for that. And then I guess the other thing, in one of the emails that were going back and forth, there were comments about the blight and beautification of the area as part of the overall sort of upliftment crime prevention strategy. And so want to acknowledge that Rowena is in direct conversation with our Department of Public Works regarding increasing the number of garbage cans along the MacArthur corridor, because we too have recognized that that is something that could help to improve the litter that's sort of building up, but then also coordinating a number of community cleanups in coordination with neighbors, but then also some of the property owners along the commercial corridor, like Homies Empowerment, the Freedom Store there. They have committed and signaled their interest in conducting regular cleanups along the corridor as well. So those are some of the updates. Want to now turn it over to community members to provide sort of questions, responses, what have you. But I'm hoping from the presentations, or at least what has been presented, you see that the Ney Avenue corridor is being prioritized. The crime, safety, gun violence is taken seriously, and we are coming together in a way that is not business as usual in order to address this in a way that we believe will have more long-term lasting results than we have seen previously. So with that, want to open it up to members of sort of the community, the neighborhood, to provide feedback, comments, questions, what have you. And I see Sadeep with his hand raised. So Sadeep.
Well, I'll give my first 2 minutes to Miss Annie, my neighbor, to speak.
Great. And I'm gonna not pull up the timer so that we can all see each other's faces, but I'll keep it on my watch.
My question is, what is it that you are planning to do here at Ney and Parker regarding the roundabout, stopping the traffic flow straight through both direction, ups and down, and straight down to Parker and down to 75th? What are you going to do for this area right at this location that will present some of this traffic coming straight from the top of the hill, straight through, no stopping? People, little kids almost got hit the other day because the car did not stop. So, I know you got the police in the area, good, but they don't stop because the police sitting there. They just keep straight on through like they're not sitting there. I don't know if they don't see them or they don't respect them. I don't know what the reason is, but we need something here, right here in this area, to curtail this here speed. It's too much speed in here. And one lady just got her car towed up last week here. Just tore up totally, hit and run. So it's really needed bad in this area in order to, derail some of this traffic,
Yep.
I think that main traffic that we are getting is coming off the freeway and it's coming down this hill instead of going straight down, 73rd to hit the main MacArthur Strip. They don't want to do that. They want to come through the neighborhood and destroy the neighborhood, and they end up destroying some of the people's cars.
Thank you for that, Miss Annie. Definitely. So I know that, Megan, you spoke to it a little bit in terms of some of the near term, but then longer term. Maybe you can address, I don't know if you know specifically about this intersection that Miss Annie is talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. That's definitely a priority intersection for the design that our team is doing right now. And so I just wanted to confirm that. And then also Ms. Annie wanted to ask if you were on the NCPC and other lists, because we'll be coming back to the community dish with a couple of different alternatives, for improvements to the entire corridor to address exactly those issues with respect to speeding and other improvements, and just want to make sure that we're able to follow up with you on that.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Sadeep, I know you gave up the first 2 minutes. Do you have? I'm assuming you have your own.
Yeah. So one of the issue that we realized 5 years of complaining is that there is a gap between the owner and the property management. Is it deliberate? We don't know. The property management company do not provide sufficient information to the owners, and owners don't have the list of issues that's going on. Example is the 7950, right? We don't have to see 71 service calls for OHA to know that something has to be done. I think that needs to be addressed. I don't know how, but communication between property management and the owners. Second thing that I want to bring up, a checkpoint, right? We have action items, we follow up. How do we make sure that that if there are 25, 50 issues coming out of properties, prevent them right there, right? Why get it so escalated that we need meetings after meetings? We need to figure out a solution for that. The third point I want to bring up, yes, we keep harping about Ney Avenue issues. I want to highlight to everybody, we are trying to find a list of solutions that works so we can apply it somewhere else, particularly MacArthur, right? If we solve the problem in Ney, but we have a problem in MacArthur, it does not help anybody. I'm seeing Ney as a proof of concept that these are the list of steps that works and can be replicated in other corridors. That's from my side. Thanks, Lauren.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sudeep. The concept of property managers and sort of the conversation with them and the property owners. I know that we've got OHA, which is a property manager / owner. And I think this question also is broader than just the OHA properties as well. And so I think that's probably I don't know if anybody has anything to say on that, but I do know I appreciate the OHA team for acknowledging a renewed commitment to being more sort of actively engaged, going through the CEPTED process to identify how to improve the situation on the grounds there. Not sure if Ms. Wells or anyone else from OHA has anything else to add based on Sudeep's comments.
Sure, thank you. And Mr. Ray, again, I do echo what the council member just remarked, that in my new role as ED, we absolutely will have a renewed focus on the properties that we own and manage. There on the Ney Avenue corridor, and indeed, the model that I articulated is to be replicated in other parts of the city where the Housing Authority has a presence. When it comes to police reports, they're an interesting thing, sir. Our police department captures police reports that are about the property, and often they're our families that we serve calling for assistance from police because of the same type of circumstances that all the neighbors in the avenue are realizing. And the other interesting thing is when you look at data of reports, it's all about how different departments, OPD and OHAPD, capture what a report is. That being said, I agree with you. One report is too many for any property. So our renewed vision and what I laid out earlier about us working with our families, working with hopefully now the neighborhood association, and becoming more of a community approach that we can reduce in the bit that we can do, focused on the properties that we manage and serve there, sir. We can reduce any impact that our properties are having, either because of someone who may be visiting a family who lives at our property, or on the what doesn't seem to be occurring much, tenants that we actually serve there. So stay tuned. You should see our presence consistently. And I also agree, it shouldn't take a meeting like this to have a property owner respond. You should see a very renewed, energized presence of the Housing Authority staff team there on Ney Avenue and throughout the city where the Housing Authority has a presence. Does that help with the answer, Mr. Ray?
Thank you. Yes, it does with OHA, but we do have to figure out where we can engage private property owners, right? Maybe NSCs or NLCs can fill the gap, because yes, OHA can do their part, but what do we do with the private owners? I think we need to find a solution.
I think so. So I'm a little bit improvising on the fly here, but I think that's part of sort of a fluid conversation. One question is, do we have a list of the property owners and property managers for the sites that we're talking about? If not, I'd see that as the first step, is identifying who they are, contact information, and then that would sort of allow neighbors to follow up directly. And then as things don't get addressed, escalate that to where from our office, we can follow up, or potentially the NSC as well. So and just in terms of the direct contact, I'm wondering if that's already together, or is that maybe the first task is to compile the list of contact information? on that.
We do have a list of owners mapped to property, but I think it's the right thing to do. Maybe your Loren County office make a master list that these are the properties and the property management contacts and the owner contacts. And some of the challenges we have with owners, they are behind trust. Finding them and their real address and contact information has been really challenging. So that's another problematic area.
So it sounds like you have a starting point for us to build on. And so I'm happy to work with my team and potentially some others who might be able to help out with that. So Rowena, maybe we take that as an action item for our office to follow up on in terms of at least a starting point of building on what the Eastmont Neighborhood Association has. Okay. One of the other things you mentioned was sort of follow-up checkpoints, Sudeep, and on that, I do want to emphasize that the role of these meetings, we should not rely on. So we should be taking advantage of the NCPC meetings for the follow-up on actions that are identified in terms of helping keep the community safe and sort of that structure. So I just wanted to emphasize that we have a structure in place to do that and to maintain regular sort of accountability on making progress and moving things forward. So wanted to emphasize that. And if we're not getting it out of that current structure, we need to make sure that that structure is sort of tweaked or adjusted so that we can and are getting that. Yeah. Next, Alex Minas.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. I kind of wanted to ask again for OHA. I have some specifics about some of the issues that are going on with some of the properties near Ritchie and Ney. Specifically 7950 Ney, there's a lot of calls to service for parking issues. And also just by, while I don't have any data in front of me about this, these properties also tend to attract a lot of illegal dumping, which is cyclical upon move-in or move-out dates, and also just a lot of general like litter in the area. What is the plan to address the parking needs of the tenants so that people who don't live in the building park are using up the parking? And what will be the action going forward in terms of assessing the garbage needs of the tenants and addressing the illegal dumping issues?
Sure. Well, Mr. Minus, first, I thank you on addressing the parking needs for our families. That's very cool and neighborly of you. And actually, I'm going to let our chief of police address that one. But in regards to the trash and dumping, I have to tell you, one of the challenges of being a property manager in the city of Oakland right now, specifically during our pandemic, is the fact that when others understand that the property management company is going to do routine trash pickup, dumping becomes a problem because they know we're going to pick it up. And so we've had an escalation, not just in this community, but in others, of a 300% rash of illegal dumping. And quite frankly, over 50% of it is not even area dumping. And you can kind of tell by what people dump and where the receipts are, right? And what we've done is now we have a daily check of our building and grounds team so that if dumping is identified, we actually have a third-party nonprofit that hires low-income persons from the community come out and remove dumping. And our goal is to do that same day. And that will continue that kind of heavy attention to dumping at Ney and some other areas and communities where we've seen an uptick in dumping until probably social distancing and the pandemic ends, because we have seen that occur and escalate during these times. So that'll be you should see a direct difference in the general litter and trash impact there, because quite frankly, we have a lot of families and children and elders in our housing authority property. So the idea that the babies that live at our properties have to deal with that is just not something that we want as a staff team. So one of the things that I'll share at the end of this presentation is an email address that if neighbors want to get in touch with our property management team, can be used. And also then I'm going to pass on to you, Chief Duplessis, to talk about your strategy on mitigating parking, sir, for our properties there on May.
Well, I think the strategy, I'm going to let Andreas answer that because that becomes more of the property management type question. Parking is one of the major problems we have everywhere on all of our properties, and that's throughout the city. Anywhere you go, as you guys look at the streets and you see that every parking space is taken. It's just a major problem, but we do respond to it at least. And the one thing we do pride ourselves on, we respond to 100% of our calls for service. And we do appreciate what our tenants are responding to. But you're talking more of the long-term solution, and that did come up in our Dept study. So Andreas, I'll go ahead and let you respond to that one.
Sure, thank you. Good evening to all of you. So Mr. Minas, just to address, this, we, typically, our philosophy is to have our, properties, as, open as it can be. But as you, may, know for this, particular corridor, there's literally no property that has, fenced, that has no fence in their, property. So we're considering, actually fencing and, making sure that the, parking is just exclusive, for residents. Our two properties in that, block are literally the ones that don't have, any, fencing, for this, purpose. So this is a consideration that we're, doing at present time.
So the reason why that I'm concerned about the parking situation is because people who, and this is just by talking to other, because we know a few people that live at these properties, and so we talk to each other a lot. People who are using the parking, they do not live here. And they're the ones who are having these unauthorized gatherings near the Ritchie and Ney cross streets. And then from there, that's where the gun violence happens. So that's why I'm very concerned, because I go pick up trash all the time. And every time I walk by those buildings, there's either, and this may not necessarily be an OHA building, but I've noticed that they're frequently too, is that people are blocking, they're blocking the sidewalk, they're blocking driveways of the apartment buildings. And I get it, it's COVID times, people are, they're at home all day. So I just don't know what we can do about the parking enforcement in terms of that,
Let me follow up for you on that question. We're going to take a zero tolerance approach. And again, with the long-term strategy for the property itself, we are looking at other designs, one of which would be a gate to keep people out the property. By November 9th, I will have the first camera installed. The first one is going to go, and it'll be looking directly down upon 7950 Ney. Not going to be a secret. I want to make sure everybody knows it's there. So we're looking at activity there at the property. We have asked our dispatch to make sure and reconfirm the permitting process with the families. Now, it is one of which, that we do understand that we deal with a population that is below less than the medium income. So we don't want to harm residents who might have a vehicle on the property that may not move at all. But for these other ones where it is a vehicle, where it is very well known that the person does not live on the property, we'll make sure that we make it very uncomfortable by citing, and if the law allows us to do so, we'll tow the vehicles off the property.
Thank you for that.
You have my commitment.
Great. Next, I see Dana Mims in the queue. Dana. Dana, you're muted. Yeah.
Sorry. I just kind of have two questions on the proposed traffic solutions and crime prevention solutions. Regarding traffic management projects for Ney, I just would like to know if there's any coordination that is going on with emergency services, given the fact of the, as what was just kind of addressed somewhat, the high congestion of parking on Ney. And are these proposed barriers taking into consideration the routes for emergency services. I myself have a neighbor on my block of 7600, which is between Ney and MacArthur. There's a neighbor who gets a fire truck 3 times a year that comes for a condition, to help her with a condition. And so I just want to know, as part of the interventions plan, that there's coordination with emergency services regarding their routes most commonly used regarding Ney in addressing fires and medical help, and to make sure that it's taken into consideration along with the amount of parking congestion on Ney. So that's my question regarding traffic management. And then regarding crime safety, with Ney being a priority, I just want to know if there's any logistics or coordination involved with making sure that the interventions applied to Ney don't turn into redirection for other areas in terms of like MacArthur and like Hillside. As we know, there's already issues with drugs and crime that are kind of between 73rd and 74th, just above Bancroft, between Bancroft and Hillside. And I just want to make sure that it's the intervention and the solutions applied don't equate to redirection nearby. And those are my 2 questions.
I'll let Megan jump in relative to the coordination with emergency services and DOT projects.
Yes, that's a great and a really critical question. And any traffic safety, like traffic calming improvements that we implement, are coordinated with and reviewed by the fire department to ensure exactly those emergency service access issues that you mentioned. So that'll be a key piece of advancing any permanent improvements.
Great. And then I'm not sure who can speak to how, as we're moving things forward, we think about peripheral movement of activities. I guess what I'll just say is that what the Department of Violence Prevention has suggested in terms of really working with those influencers who are closely connected and have relationship with those who are deeply involved in the violence, that is a strategy around actually changing behaviors and presenting other options and having folks choose other options that will that is intended to not have just a shuffling from one block to the next, but to actually change the behaviors of those and have other options to where it's not just promulgating the same thing somewhere else. I think correct me if I'm wrong, DC Armstrong, but there is always that aspect of, if we have just an enforcement arm, it will likely just have the activity occur somewhere else. That's why we have this multi-pronged approach with enforcement, design through things like what DOT is doing, the deeper intervention and relational connectivity, and the transformation that we're having with our Department of Violence Prevention. So having these multiple prongs is what is part of the strategy to ensure the longer term change and make sure that it's not just shifted down the road or to the next block.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's about real solutions, right? I think, not having an over reliance on law enforcement to be there long term, and then recognizing that to Chief Cespedes, I know will speak to this as well. We want to be very surgical in who we go in and address, and allow DVP to do their work, right? We just want to get the individuals out there that are driving the violence, that are shooting and causing actions in the community, and then allow DVP to take care of it. Hopefully that doesn't cause displacement, right? That helps with displacement because we're addressing the issue and not the whole surrounding community, right? And pushing things to other areas. Instead, we're allowing DVP to come in and do those wraparound services that I think helps to not push it to another area. So I'll pass it to Chief Cespedes.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And you're correct, Councilmember Taylor, that the approach here is really not to displace, but to dissolve some of these behaviors right where they occur. I think our data shows that when you do that, displacement is minimized. So we're very lucky in that in our collaboration with Deputy Chief Armstrong, that there's an understanding that handcuffs as the first resort can lead to displacement. So we're talking about an integrated public health approach that does include holding people accountable that are creating the harm, and at the same time working with community and relationships to dissolve some of these issues, whether take place. So our goal is not to displace, our goal is to dissolve some of these conflicts, whether take place, so that community members don't have to run elsewhere. Either those that are harming or those that are victims of harm. So I think there's a pretty good team in place that we should see success if we work together. So I am encouraged by that.
Thank you. And then Chief, I know that you, Chief Cespedes, I know that you briefly sort of touched on it, but do you mind just giving a 2-minute overview of the triangle incident response?
Well, the triangle incident response basically is operationalizing that whole concept that when there's a crisis in a community, that there are functions that historically we have left up exclusively to law enforcement that can be done by other entities. This is not something that this is not a concept, this is something that was implemented, was field tested for over 2,500 or more, but certainly 2,500 under my watch. And it's been evaluated as being effective. So we are now in discussions we're doing two things. One, field testing some initial deployments and discussing with OPD, this city administrator's office, and especially my team, because we, including me, will have to be responding to these crime scenes. So what the triangle response is a way of addressing trauma immediately as it happens, and also an entry point towards the mediation immediately as it happens in real time. And the one side effect of that is it has improved, based on studies, the relationship between city government and marginalized communities. So again, this is a best practice. It has been evaluated elsewhere. And as we transfer a best practice to the city of Oakland, we have to, what some people refer to as Oaklandize it, which really means contextualizing it and making sure that it fits with the context here. So that's what we're in the process of doing. And we hope that this is one of the many tools in the toolbox that helps Oakland reverse this trend of high levels of violence that we're all very frustrated about.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Please, Peter.
Councilmember, if I could just add, I think it's been articulated perfectly by everyone, including yourself, Councilmember, regarding that approach. I just want to add that I think it's really encouraging to hear a resident in this group raise that question and be concerned with not just displacing folks from one location to another and therefore shifting the violence or the disruptions from one community to another. But that's encouraging to hear. I know that for those folks that are actually usually at the center of that violence, it's important for them to hear that their community members aren't necessarily saying, we just want you out. They really want to know, like, how do we try to change the conditions so we're all safe? I think that's going to go a long way for them to feel really invested in as a part of the community. So I appreciate that Ms. Mims raised that.
Great point.
Thank you for that. To move forward, we've got Jose, whose hand is raised. And I know we're getting short on time, but Jose, please go ahead.
Oh, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
First, I would like to thank everybody here present from OPD, BPD, OHA, Council Member Taylor, and the other supporting departments. I want to have, I'm sorry for the background, have three, well, first question is for OHA. So one is, I know that you are, I want to make sure that out of this meeting, we kind of have actions and dates of when things are going to get done. So the gates that are considering the fencing, when will that get done around the property? The cameras in November 9th, but the lighting, when is that going to get done? So date. And then also my concern with the OHA properties is around compliance. So even we're restarting this refreshing tool of training for supporting and services, I want to understand why doesn't the property has on-site, there's state law, if you have over a certain amount of units in a building, you should have property management on site. Have you considered that? If not, why not? Additionally, for OHA, you have to understand that there's many, from a redlining perspective from before our time in legacy, there's a lot of buildings in the same section from OHA to Section 8. So there's a big disparity already there. So we can't really say from the tenure of any of your positions that you can't really, whether it's that you started a year ago, whether it's Loren Taylor just started his position a couple years ago. I think the tenure of anybody's position in any office should not really kind of ignore the gaps of compliance. So that's my major thing. Major compliance issues in those properties, and we're restarting different models, but I don't understand how come we're not using data to, just like what we're presenting, to address those issues. So the other one is for OPD. Through there are CRO projects. I understand that there are other districts that have more projects than our district or Area 5. So there was a report last year, and from the, if I remember correctly, from the Research Development Associates, RDA, that was contracted 3 years to provide some data to OPD. And from that data, there were a couple of recommendations done. And this was a joint meeting of the City Council and Safety and Service Oversight Commission on April 17, 2019. And the data that was presented in that report, OPD and Loren Taylor, is that we need more CROs. So you're talking about how to engage community, but if we have only one CRO and we have so many problems, how can he do it, right? There's a bottleneck there. So is OPD and Loren Taylor, are we going to advocate for additional CROs and more projects, CRO based, for this area? And by when, right? And I think the other question will be for DOT. Thank you again for addressing the community concerns and visiting here with the slow streets. It's a work in progress, I understand. But if we're going to do the planters, or the next evolving thing, is it by when we're going to do those planters? So those are my questions.
All right, I'm going to try and quarterback those because let's see the responses. So first was dates for deliverables around SEPTED improvements to OHA. What dates can you provide? I think lighting, security cameras, gates, and fences were what was identified. If we
I think I can address a few of them. So lighting has been done. We did the lighting within I think early last week we started, as soon as we conducted the SEPTED report. And again, we're continuing to monitor the lighting to make sure it's not defeated. After the report, we made a significant investment and have approved the purchase of a pole cam for each one of those properties. Because we also understood that there was a significant issue. And again, I want to reiterate this fact to you as housing authority. I know you see us as a bureaucracy, that the government entity that's here. Well, no, we're property managers, just like anyone else that are concerned with a vulnerable population of residents. And we are as concerned about their safety as anyone else. And we don't want to be the problem, nor do we want the problem within the community to affect them. So we're going to go beyond just putting a camera up on our property to look at each one of those. We're going to put a couple more cameras up also to look down those blocks, also so that we can help OPD and the community to see more of what's going on. That way we can have a more beneficial response to the issues that are occurring there. that's our commitment as a community partner. One of which that is, again, concerned for the well-being of everyone that's on Ney Avenue, just not our residents. The gate is going to take a little bit longer to do. I mean, those are, of course, you're talking about construction and bids, and we do have federal guidelines that we have to abide by to get it done. But we're actively looking at getting that done because we believe that would improve the welfare of not only the residents, but that community. The first cameras I should have the week of November 9th, and the first site that it will go up will be 7950 Ney. Next one will be 7908, the one next, and we'll just keep going down the block. And it's my intent to have all of them up on that entire Ney corridor by December 1st. And I pretty much can commit to that will be taken care of, and we will update you as those things are going. Other issues, at the end of this, we'll leave our email for you that you can refer other commitments to us. Now, I will, I don't want to step on anyone's toes here. But I want to tell you, Jose, that what makes it so attractive us to have such a working group is that you guys do have a voice, and we don't get that voice from anyone. A lot of the laws, a lot of things that have come out have really hampered us and hindered us, our ability to be able to do things. A couple of years ago, in 2018, there was an ordinance that was repealed that me as a housing authority person can't tell somebody who lives on our property that they're loitering on it and to get off. I mean, they felt it was unconstitutional, and we're being held the same way as OPD and other entities, where a lot of the laws are really pushing back and creating a hole for us to be able to really hold people accountable. Now, eviction is not something we ever want to see of a family. It's something that we clearly would do if that was the case in order to make the community better. But, there could be times that we need the voice of this community to speak up and to voice your concern, to make sure that we have the proper laws on our side, that we can hold people accountable and that we can address a lot of the issues in ways that is better for the global community and not those who are violating the law around the property. So, Patricia, I might have gone too far, but I see you're smiling, so I'll let you pick it up from there.
Sure. Thank you, Chief. Actually, I appreciated the points that you raised, the fact that you responded to Jose on the timelines, and you affirmed once again that for us, Jose, again, with the questions you asked there, the right questions we've been asking ourselves, which is why we started this work in the summer, actually, before we had even been introduced to the group. And our goal is to make the properties that we manage safe for our families, and it's added benefit when we can do things like what Chief just described with the pole cams, to be a good neighbor and add more protection and be in partnership with our partners at Oakland PD and the crime prevention unit with the Chief to be an added benefit to the community. That's the investment we're making now. Speaking about why haven't things been done in the past, there's a myriad of questions. What you have from us today, sir, is our commitment that we've come full force with an investment in cameras and the gates and improving our communities. And for us, equally as important, working with the families we serve. They're moms, dads, grandmothers, children who deserve the same kind of amazing life as all of us do. In regards to the number of properties in that community, historically, Oakland has always had a challenge with affordable housing. And so an investment was made many, many moons ago to put the number of properties on that block. And our goal here today as a housing authority team is to make sure that we improve. And I absolutely am accepting that we had improvement to make the way that we manage those properties, sir, and to be at the table and engaged with you and all the other neighbors, that the Housing Authority will be a regular participant in your community meetings from this point forward. And hopefully some of the great families that we serve will be interested to get involved. They would love to be part, from just what we've heard from them, of beautification, community plannings, volunteering at the school there. So as I said at the beginning, we're looking forward to this being a positive future and that we can make a difference and make this safe for everybody. Does that help, Jose?
Thank you. And then in 15 seconds, can you describe the property management strategy for different sites? On-site property management, because that was raised as
The on-site property management, actually, the requirement here in the city of Oakland, I believe, and Andres, correct me if I'm wrong, is 16 units or more. And so these buildings do not meet that requirement for on-site property management. We do have different types of on-site assistance at other properties where we have more than 16 units. But for these properties, the added attention of the daily visits from the property management team, we hope will add some be value added to those properties. Most of them are between 8 and 12 units there on Main Street. So they're smaller, and that's why it doesn't exist. Thank you, Councilmember, for reminding me of that question. I forgot that one.
Absolutely. I think there was another question related to compliance issues on properties. I'm not sure. I didn't quite get a question out of that, Jose. What was?
Oh, am I muted? Oh, sorry.
You're on now.
Oh, yes. So my question is that just like any company you work for, they have quality management systems and they have like loops, feedback loops, where if you didn't meet a criteria, in this case is a compliance issue for any issue, how do you go back and make sure that whether it's through your constant reporting that you're looking at, obviously not through your constant reporting because there are a bunch of calls here and then they were not detected. So what is the gap? What is it missing that in your guy manual or your systems that you can't catch this? And like, to me, it's a big issue.
You're talking about trend analysis and like that kind of thing?
Yeah, like exactly. Well, not the trend analysis. Beyond that, Loren, what raises the flag? Like, obviously,
I understand what you're getting at, Patricia. If you don't mind, let me answer this question. It's something you've nailed a lot about our response. The housing authority is the biggest landlord in the city of Oakland. We have a multitude of property. At full staff, I would only have 34 sworn officers. We're not a big department, spread very thin. On most days, including right now, I have 3 officers and a sergeant out on patrol, and it's a lot to cover. So you've nailed exactly what it is and how we do it. And we run analysis based upon crime statistics and calls for service on a daily, weekly, and a monthly basis, as well as annual. Our pattern of practice is how we get to various sites is in regards to those call for service or incidents that we have at the property. Now, I saw the emails and I have the question into Chief Armstrong, and he's verifying this for me. I'm not certain that 71 calls for service for OPD is correct. The 47 calls for service that we have on our property is absolutely correct. And I can tell you right now, 35 of those came in for our residents because we encourage them to call in, even if it's high or if it's a minor situation. Our statistics show since January 1st, 2019, that OPD at 7915A has only received 12 calls for service, 4 of which they actually gave to us that we responded. That's also included with those 47 for us. So the problem for us is there was never a trigger on this because there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of information. We have OPD's CAD system in our dispatch. We actually have other systems that detail their reporting with us. It is a constant part of our reporting system. We spend more time at other properties because 7915A was not on our radar. It's on our radar now based upon what I'm hearing from the community. I question again whether that 71 is accurate. We'll look into that and see if that in fact is accurate. From looking at their system in mine, I don't see it. But it doesn't matter. It's important for the community. And let me tell you this, even without that, it wouldn't have mattered. I was on that email stream the weekend that they had all those shootings. And I was, I remember emailing Patricia about 10:30 at night because I was horrified of this. And then we exchanged some emails in the morning, and we knew that Monday morning we need to do something and take a good look. You have our attention on this, and we will continue. But again, we operate based upon performance statistics, measurable analysis, predictive analysis, always constantly looking at the numbers to determine exactly how we perform and how we respond, because we cannot be everywhere. There is no way 35 officers spread 365 days a year on multiple shifts can cover every property. We have to go where there's a problem. When we know there's a problem, we will have our officers and we will have our people present there. And again, Nay Avenue now has our attention. Jose, have I answered your question?
Yes, you have. Thank you for your response. And I really want to let the people know here that I also am a kid from East Oakland. I went to Fremont High and I live here, and I really want to give back. So this engagement is very productive. However, it will be the most productive if we come out with action items and by when. So that's what I'm looking for. So thank you for responding to that.
You got it. Thank you, Jose.
Great. Jose, you also mentioned the CRO projects, comparing number of projects in a report from a year ago, a couple years ago, in this part of the city to other parts of the city. And I think there are a couple answers or responses to that. The first piece, just relative to the comparisons, it's plain reality is that we've got more activity in this part of Oakland than, say, other parts of Oakland. And so as a result, CROs are dealing with more intractable issues, and also they are sort of responding to more serious incidents out here being pulled in than maybe in Montclair or elsewhere. So I think that's one reason if they have more time to do other projects, I think, and the projects that they get assigned to are lighter, not as sort of meaty or weighty. But that doesn't, I guess, change the fact that I think everyone acknowledges across the city that community policing is something that we need to sort of strengthen and sort of bring more energy, resources, and focus around. And so I believe that you guys are familiar with the whole Community Policing Advisory Board and the whole structure around that we have in place. I think that's one area to focus in terms of influencing how things are deployed. I think one of the things that I have lifted up to our OPD leadership is the aspect around right sizing and reevaluating the sizing of our areas and our police beats. If they're appropriately sized based upon the volume of activity versus more just geography, right? And there's this aspect of if you've got more intensity, maybe you should have a smaller geography that you're responsible for in East Oakland or BFO2. And so that's a conversation that I've lifted up. And honestly, that conversation, the conversation around sort of restructuring all of that is being incorporated into the reimagining public safety conversation and process. And I know that's one that has been lifted up to the residents of the Eastmont area to participate and get involved in, to make sure that those ideas and those sort of recommendations on how we should improve the overall structure can get incorporated. Because when we're talking about transforming our approach, changing how we sort of drive things to increase focus energy in the areas where it's most needed, that's a key part of those conversations that are happening as well. So wanted to lift that up. As far as your specific question on are we going to add CROs to a given area, like double up on one beat or another. I think that's not necessarily, that has not been part of the conversation. I think maybe DC Armstrong can speak to how we are increasing resources and pulling resources from those areas kind of in general to address the increased activity in East Oakland. But as far as a structural change in terms of just a greater density of CROs, that would be part of the reimagining process in terms of exploring what that might look like.
Yeah, thanks, Jose, for the question. I think that the challenge on beat 30 in particular is that it is a very large beat. It is one of our larger beats in BFO2. Obviously, it is dense. It has a lot of residents on this beat, both X and Y, and one CRO trying to handle both beats is a lot. I think, I give Officer Demirel a lot of credit because he is moving from one side of the beat to the other, trying to manage a lot of issues. So it is a tremendous challenge. There is no plan currently to expand the CRO program. What we are doing is simply trying to reallocate resources from other places within the department. But every time you see us take from one place, that means there's something else that's not getting done. So while we might take a couple officers from our traffic division to come support all of the traffic safety issues that we have, in particular around the Ney and MacArthur corridor, that requires us to shrink our traffic footprint throughout the city as well as in East Oakland. So for us, we don't expect obviously any additional staffing. What we're doing is trying to manage the problems and really prioritize what it is that we are working on. And so Demirel has a lot of experience and he's doing his best to sort of, navigate through these challenges and ask for assistance where needed. But I understand because several years ago, prior to the new Measure Z, beat 30 was cut into two beats. It was 30X and 30Y, which allowed us to have a larger footprint. But now we're at 35 CROs, which only allows one CRO per beat. And that is where the workload for beat 30 is probably the largest workload of any beat in the city. It is the most challenging beat. And so Demirel will continue to work closely with, I see Marla Williams here as well from the other side. I mean, I think, that's the challenge of trying to be able to manage both sides of a huge beat. So we're doing the best we can and then assigning our patrol officers some assignments as well when they're available.
Thank you for that. I know we are at 7:45 right now, and I think we were planning for an hour-and-a-half conversation. I still see Alex and Dana, who had already sort of made some comments online. I would like to switch now to the slides. I want to pull up slides because I'm grateful to Rowena, who was able to capture some of the items to Jose's point, where we wanted to talk about commitments and what it is we are hoping to be able to kind of walk away with. And so hopefully you guys can see the screen that I have, what we captured in terms of some of the commitments that were made that we can reflect back on as we move forward. For OPD, we heard that we've placed an officer at Ney Ave and at Ney Avenue, and I believe it was Parker, for approximately 16 hours a day to increase the presence. I heard not just partnership with OHA PD, which is ongoing, but also partnerships with the other sort of departments, DVP, as well as I think ATF, as it comes to addressing the guns that are on our streets as well. So I heard aspects of continuing and increased partnership. And then let's see, NCPC, new projects with, so Officer Demirel identified newer projects that were moving forward, be in combination with the NSCs, the CROs, and District 6. And I think one of the things to highlight that was mentioned in the letter that I had sent on is the top 5 for 5 effort around identifying the 5 highest priorities for Area 5, and definitely the parts of the Eastmont corridor are highlighted on that. As far as DVP, we heard around direct engagement of influencers, those who are influencing those that are tied closest to the gun violence, as well as assigning violence interrupters on the ground to the 4 higher priority areas across the city, one of which is the Ney Avenue area. Coordination with OPD, yes, but I also heard and wanted to add in that we spoke about the sort of culmination of a community block party / event where we are pulling together those more directly connected to violence, those from this neighborhood association, those from our housing association properties, in a way of building the community to deliver on that sort of vision of a more thriving neighborhood that we're focused on. The OHA, I heard, delivering on the CEPTED findings, including camera installations. So everything wrapped up by December 1st, and the first actual implementations, I think the week of November 9th for the cameras. Lighting already installed. We'll be connecting residents of Oakland Housing Authority to the neighborhood association. I saw some in the chat, some of the neighborhood association members who have expressed their commitment and desire to partner with OHA residents around community cleanups and other sort of activities, beautification. So I saw that there. As far as our office, I think we identified the follow-up relative to the slow streets in partnership with our Department of Transportation, the planters, the planter boxes, that artistic planter boxes as part of the, to add to the hardening efforts that OakDOT is already planning relative to their phase 2. Rowena is investigating the community garden at the vacant lot and having sort of engaging with the lot owner around that concept. Reducing blight, activating vacant properties, the continued commitment that we have to that, including increasing litter containers, and then community, helping to facilitate the community cleanups. And then from the Ney Avenue neighbors, the aspect of sort of extending and welcoming the OHA property residents to the neighborhood association and continuing to partner. I saw participating in and planning, helping to plan that neighborhood / community event. I saw that commitment. And then I think the other thing that I saw in the chat was a commitment to support OHA as a property owner and partner in the neighborhood relative to some of the items that Chief Duplessis had identified, where, you know, working together, leveraging the voice of the neighbors would be helpful as well. I'm sure I missed a few things, but we got those captured, and anything else can certainly be added offline, even if we don't capture it right now. So wanted to cover that as far as some of the commitments that we did capture. Anything else to add right now? Anyone want to jump in and just anything that wasn't captured that's important?
Councilmember, I did in the chat add the contact information for the OHA property management team, and I can email it to you and Rowena so it can be captured in the notes that are going out to all of us.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I will capture these 2 slides of the commitment slide, and we will add the contact information slide as well. Great, thank you. Okay, with that, so I see hands that are still raised. Are these urgent things that we feel need to get addressed? And I'll just reach out, Dana, Alex, and Jose. Urgent things that need to be addressed, or can they be addressed offline?
Just real quick, Lauren, can you talk about the ShotSpotter expansion in 30Y? Is there any plan for that?
So there are not plans. I know the conversations have been initiated in terms of some dialogue. I'm not sure, DC Armstrong, if you know anything further, but I think there's investigation that's needed. What I do know in terms of history is that there was a broader expansion planned for ShotSpotter, where that budget item did not move forward with the mid-year revise. And so I think for a targeted sort of expansion, I think that's something that we will probably require a lighter lift and could be pushed forward. But right now, there's nothing tangible to specifically speak to relative to ShotSpotter expansion. DC Armstrong?
No, Councilmember, you're exactly right. I think we attempted to expand the program, but we weren't provided the funding to do so. And so we've brought that back to the council member to see how we can proceed with hopefully being able to expand the program. If not now, hopefully in the next budget cycle.
Dana, was there something that you wanted to throw out before we close?
No, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay.
I was not a good student today.
All good, all good. So I want to thank everybody again. This is coming together, collaborating on how we move things forward with this shared goal, shared interest. Echoing Jose, it is about follow-up, follow-through, and I look forward to helping track, monitor, and move things forward, as I know you guys will as well. So thank you for the time, and look forward to continued progress.
Thank
you, Loren.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.